Well, it is my third one and my second contract with this particular seller.
Hey, that's good. That's good. Getting it right out the gate, which is awesome. Yeah, I love that piece of it. Yeah. So today what we're going to talk a little bit more about is just how do you make that offer and how are you receiving the offers? And just kind of streamlining that for you guys. That way you feel like you have that control with things and what you're, and not necessarily control, but you are managing the situation. You're creating that customer service experience. Um, my big line is always we're in the customer service industry and it just happens that we sell a house with every transaction that we do. So that's a lot of what I like to tell my agents is like, we're here, we're creating a customer service experience, and how do we make this memorable? So we'll talk about that today with the making and receiving offers. Go here, and then there's that piece of it on there. From what you guys have been doing, have you guys been doing that daily success system? Any shares that you guys have, any big wins from your activity? Did you reach out to someone and they said, "Hey, I'm ready to go"? They're raising their hands. Yeah, Vinny had someone on there. Yeah, awesome. Would any of you like to share what that experience was like? Yeah, yeah. I showed up to a birthday party and I got a buyer lead just for showing up. So just like, hey, you do real estate, right? Yeah. How can I help? Yeah.
Yeah,
So just
I
remember.
met a potential buyer. She's in the process of getting pre-approved, and met her at a social function. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, it's just getting out there, getting in front of people, just to be associated with them. But yeah, that's great. Congratulations. Keep in front of them. All right, we'll get started here. Did anyone encounter any challenges that you want to talk through, or just how would you handle that moments? Anything that you guys are like, hey, or have you talked to your coach about it? Really make use of your productivity coaches, your managing broker, if any of those questions come up. Just mastermind with people. That's kind of things. All right. Have you guys seen this, our belief system? I'm pretty sure, yeah. A lot of that with the belief system, and I actually have this in my both my buyer presentation and my seller presentation. In the beginning cover, I have the belief system, and I talk to the points here with my. I'm going to move this over. Sorry, just admitting people at the same time. This is a good talking point when you're in those presentations of who you are and who you've associated yourself with and your business with. I always talk about win-win or no deal, making sure that everyone's on the same page and that the deals are going to make sense for everyone that's coming through. The other piece I talk about is teamwork. Sometimes you run into situations where they're a little bit more stressful for inspection did not go how you wanted it to go, or financing is starting to fall through, something happens. And at the end of the day, you have to remind the sellers and the buyers, like, hey, this is a team effort. Like, we're making this so that everyone can get to the finish line successfully. So I would recommend when you guys are building out your buyer and your seller presentations, add the belief system, add why you associate with it. And I always pick something to say, hey, here's where we're at, and here's what this means to me, and this is how it impacts our transactions. So I would get that added on there. Go here to that next slide. So then we're also going to talk about just today's agenda, right? How do you prepare that offer? What is it that you can do to make sure that you're communicating with everyone along the process and just more for efficiency basis? And so we'll understand the practices of making and receiving the offers. You'll start to learn kind of those best practices. And I like to call them the things I wish I would have done in the beginning. So if I can save you guys that time, this is going to be a perfect segment for it, because I started realizing that I could write templates for me. I could do things, and I'll share some of those with you today, that are just going to make your life easier and just ways to run your business more effectively. So Bo Bennett once said, I like to think of sales as the ability to gracefully persuade, not to manipulate a person or persons into a win-win situation. So when it comes to receiving the making and receiving offers, it's all about just gracefulness and the win-win negotiation, right? So we're going to talk about negotiations as well as in our second chapter. But it's just like, how do we get through this? How do we make it effective, easy for everyone? So it's a memorable experience. So there's going over our offer process here. And then I like to go over a flow chart with my clients. So my buyer presentation, my seller presentation, both of them have a flow chart similar to this. And it starts with the buyers making the offer, right? So if the buyer's making the offer, we're negotiating kind of sometimes before we're writing that offer. And there's 3 ways for that seller to respond, right? Right away, they could say, no, thank you. I got a better offer that met all of my needs, or hey, I like your offer just as is, and we're beginning that contract to close process. Or they're like, I like your terms, your conditions. However, I got this offer that can close in 2 weeks versus 30 days, or I need a 45-day closing versus a 15-day closing, whatever that may be. So this is where you start seeing those counter offers. And keep in mind with your counter offers, if it's only going to change a certain piece of your contract, for example, that closing date, if it's moved up or down, that might be the only thing that it changes. And all the rest of your terms and conditions in your initial contract are the ones that stay on there. Can you guys think of what emotions happen for a client when they're going through receiving an offer or making an offer? What do you think they're feeling?
Scared, worried.
Anxiety.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. And we're that voice of reason. We're that voice of like, hey, remember why, or re-explaining. And you'll get really good at explaining the process and then just reminding them along the way. So anytime I sit with a buyer or a seller, I talk up to them about, we're going to have this happen. Here's what's going to happen at inspection. Here's what's going to happen with the appraisal, with the lending process, negotiations, and what that means throughout. So I'll say it in the beginning, and then every time we're hitting that next step, we're going to continue to talk about it. So that's what that section talks about on there. And then the other thing to keep in mind, and this is something that I do initially with the client when I'm first meeting with them. So in my initial buyer consultation, people have different ways of communicating, right? So one of my main things that I ask them is, do you prefer text? Do you prefer email? Is there a better time to reach you? And also when I have a spouse or a partnership agreement, I always ask them their best way to communicate with both of them. That way they're both in the mix of things. So understanding that piece and what's important to them, it'll get you guys a little bit further because you're creating that relationship a little bit deeper on that side of things. And then also making sure that you're explaining to them just kind of the way that you're going to submit the offer to them. I know a lot of us in the States, just different states do things differently. Colorado has DocuSign. We also have something called CTME. So it's which way are your clients? Are they electronic? Like, is electronics their thing? Is it not? Do you need to print out a hard copy and go meet with them physically? So just ask those questions up front. And that way you're catering that experience to them a little bit further. Bear with me, just moving you guys around here in the screen. Any ahas that you guys can take away from that piece? I know it's a shorter version on there. Pretty cut and dry. Yeah, okay, perfect. So let me go over preparing the actual offer. This is where I win, is what I like to call it. A lot of things is you want to make sure that the property is available. So especially as Scott was saying earlier, like he's still in a hot seller's market. If you're getting ready to show a property, it's been on the market 24, 48 hours. So the importance of knowing your market, call the listing agent before making that showing appointment. There was once earlier this year, it was a Tuesday. I didn't feel like I needed to make the call into Tuesday, and I should have before scheduling that appointment. They already had a couple offers in hand and they went under contract right away. So that would be a big thing. If it's been over the weekend, if it's, like I said, like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, make sure you're reaching out to that agent just to see where they stand with offers. And start building that rapport with them. I've talked to agents where they were just getting ready to accept an offer, and I've asked them hey, if anything happens, let me know. We want to schedule a showing, or we saw it already. how can I be, how can you remember me and how can I continue to keep in touch with you if something happens with that contract? So that'll be your way of building rapport. It shows your professionalism because you're checking ahead of time to make sure that that inventory is still available. The other thing, just inquire about activity. If they tell you, hey, the property's still still available, schedule that showing. Ask them how their activity was this weekend. How many showings did they have? Did they have an open house and have a lot of groups? Start asking what that looks like. A lot of with activity, if they haven't had a whole lot of activity, and as you guys get into CMAs a little bit more, you'll start seeing that you can, maybe the house is overpriced, right? Is there something that we could do and negotiate if we're representing the buyer? Can we negotiate concessions? Are there price reductions potentially if the house has been sitting 60 days? What does that look like? So start having that conversation with the agent, and they're seeing where you're coming from on that side of things. If it was previously under contract, ask why it fell through. Was it financing from the buyer? Is there something major that the seller doesn't want to fix or is willing to fix and the buyer was like hesitant to move forward with it, right? Like, is it a sewer line? Is it a roof? Is it an electrical issue? What is that item that caused that property to fall through? And then you can also ask what the motivation is for the seller. And some agents, depending on where we're at, right? Some agents will share, some others won't, but a lot of the time you might just get, hey, they're just selling, they need to sell. Sometimes you might get a story, but just ask questions to specify what's in the best interest for the seller and how can you write an offer that's going to be competitive. And it's going to be enticing to that seller to say, hey, you know what? I like this offer, or I just want to counter because of a date, or I need to make this change. How can you make that offer appealing to that seller? Also, make sure that what you're doing is obtaining that buyer's pre-approval letter. You always want to make sure you have a pre-approval, not a pre-qualification. Do you guys know those differences? Yeah, okay, perfect, yeah. Want to make sure they've gone through full underwriting, verification of employment, the whole thing. You don't want a surprise at the end or go under contract and hey, they only work 30 hours, not 40. So that type of thing. The other thing, making sure you're just reviewing the MLS. And being very clear in what you're looking for. Sometimes you'll get a washer and dryer, state of Colorado. We have an inclusions and an exclusion section in our contract. And with that piece of it, sometimes the washer and the dryer aren't in the inclusions and they're also not in the exclusions. So that's another question that I asked the listing agent, or if my seller or buyer want to have that included or excluded, that's when we'll add it in the contract to buy and sell. So that's another thing to keep in mind as you're writing your offer. Make sure you're comparing it to the notes in the MLS. Is there an HOA? Is there a special note that says there's a transfer fee for HOAs or some nuance that you guys are not aware of? So just make sure that you're keeping that S key on there. And then the other thing, yeah, going back to if the property's been sitting for a while, go ahead and do a CMA. That's something I always recommend if you're not in a super competitive offer, have to right now situation. Providing that CMA will give your buyer the expertise that, hey, you know what's going on in the market, right? You know that 2 doors down, that house sold for X above with X in closing cost, or, you know, there's starting to be price reductions in the house or in the area. And what else is happening in that piece of it? So something to keep in mind. I always say that's a good starting point because your client's always going to tell you, well, what do you think? And what we can do as agents is present to them, we have X amount of listings, so many have sold, and start going that route with them. So that's a big piece. I would also encourage you, take this checklist, make it your own. Command, I know you can add little checklists to the top of it in every stage that you're at with the client. You can also do a Google Sheet or something to keep you on track with each client to make sure that every single time you're doing the exact same steps for everyone that way. And then here in the state of Colorado, we have disclosure sometimes online with our MLS, sometimes we don't. So just making sure you're clear and transparent what's going on there and providing those dates and deadlines as they go. See here, what else I had in my notes. Move on here. Any ahas from that section? I know they put these pretty back together. Pretty quiet. Okay. Alrighty, so that next section, write the offer, and I have some examples in here for you to see just of the contract and those checklists that I was telling you about. So the next section about writing the offer. This is the information that you're gathering as you're having that conversation with the listing agent, right? If you're that buyer's agent. What are the price and terms that you're looking to seek? If there's multiple offers, is there a range that they can give you? What information? Some states will let you disclose, some don't, as far as how many offers you have or what the terms and conditions are of those offers. So making sure that you're writing that correct to the price and terms. Is there any seller's disclosures? What's conveying with the property? So going back to that washer and dryer, are they there? Are they not? What are those little nuances? Is the wine fridge staying? So making sure that you're just clear and concise in all of that. When's your earnest money due? Who is it due to? For how much? Here in Colorado, we don't hold our earnest money with the brokerage. We have title companies that will hold that for us. What are your due diligence periods, right? Really knowing your contract and knowing what those dates are, they're going to get you much further in the way that you're writing your contract. And I'll show you guys in our example in Colorado, we have dates and deadlines for these periods. And then also asking that $1 million question to that listing agent. How much time do you need for seller acceptance? Sometimes 24 hours, sometimes that same day they can give it to you, or if the person's traveling, if the seller's traveling, maybe they need 48 hours. So asking those questions is showing that you're coming from value and that they're going to understand, hey, I'm going to work with a professional on the other side of things because they're already asking me for all of this up front. So it's just some key information to keep on there. Knowing the financing terms, right? Is your client FHA? Are they conventional? Are they getting down payment assistance? And is that going to slow down the process or do things speed up? Are they a cash buyer? Are you getting bridge loans? What is it that the type of financing that they're doing to purchase this property? So understanding that piece around it. And I would encourage you all, just as you get those pre-approval letters, as you're creating your relationships with these lenders, ask how they work, right? Are you taking them through a full underwrite? Have you done verification of employment? What is it that you're doing and how strong of a lender letter are you getting? I would be weary and experience from another friend of mine. He worked with a lender that was also a traveling notary. And I was like, if a lender is a traveling notary at the same time, that should be a red flag for you. If a lender is fully a lender, they should be busy. They should be working on their business as well. I would question that type of lender sometimes if they're not super busy in their business, what's going on. And I'm not saying that it's bad to have two jobs, but there's got to be a little bit more for someone to go after and be hungry, right, on the lending side of things. So that's something I would just recommend. That's the former lender in me. And then, making sure what closing date you need. Is there any home warranties, any repairs that you need to be aware of and let your buyer know? Any special clauses, right? Is this a 1031 exchange that's happening? I know Colorado, we have a clause that goes into it. Is the seller related to the agent? Is there other clauses that go in there for your state specifically? Any additional addendums that need to be said on that side of things? In Colorado, we have a section for us that's the additional provision section. In that section, do you have that? Do you know your contract? Are we going to start getting into escalation clauses? Are you guys familiar with escalation clauses? Potentially? No. So an escalation clause could say, hey, if you receive an offer and I can beat it by $1,000, $5,000, my offer instead of $350 will go to $355 or $365. And so there'll be certain clauses that are written. And then the other thing that you'll want to get is just a verified, maybe it's page 1 or the page that says what the offer is for. And so you just want to make sure you're getting verification of that. So that's more of an escalation clause that you're beating out the other offer by X amount. Another one that we might start seeing depending on how our season is. I know we saw it a lot in 2021, 2020 with appraisal gaps where people are willing to pay $25,000, maybe $50,000 above the list price. But is the property going to appraise, right? Like the bank at the end of the day is the one that has that final say. So what's that appraisal gap language look like? Are you going to pay $5,000 if it doesn't appraise? Are we not going to pay anything? So having those conversations with your buyers up front, having that conversation with the lender, if you start getting into that piece of the market on there, is a lot of what I would ask. Does that make sense with those clauses? Yeah, okay. We have one here in Colorado too, just randomly, that is a broom swept condition that our attorney typed up for us. Sometimes the house, they just had a lot of stuff. And so we just want to make sure that all the stuff is removed from the house. I've gotten into storage bins and I'm like, oh, they didn't take any of this and they were really full, or the storage right above the garage, just packed. So just adding additional language, seeing what kind of house you're walking into, or just making that straight across the board the same on there. Have you guys run into any situations that way, that you've seen houses with a lot of things?
Oh, yeah. I've reached out to an agent to make sure they would clean it up. And they were friendly. They responded, yeah, no problem. If they want to make an offer, we'll clean up all the extra stuff left behind, but they ended up not making the offer, so.
Yeah, no, yeah, better be safe than sorry, and have that conversation up front. Yeah, that's a lot of it on there. Yeah, you never know. You never know what you're gonna get. So. Alrighty, let me move on here. I have a question for you guys. On average, what would you say closing days from under contract to closing you're in your areas?
30 to 45 days.
30 to 45 days? Okay.
I was gonna say same here.
All right.
I'm gonna say, it depends. Some are that quick, some are up to 90.
Yeah. So I think our area is about 25-30 days here in Colorado. I just pulled my numbers earlier in the month, and it looks like on average I'm at an 18-day close, contract to close is my number. So keep track of those numbers for you. I think it's a cool stat just to kind of keep monitoring. My people have been in and we've been able to win offers that way with quick closings. So that's just another little technique that you guys could use, or going a 45-day close if they need to be in the house past closing. Do you guys offer post-closing occupancy agreements or rent back agreements in your states?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Right, and it's all about how do you get that offer, right? So if they need a post-closing occupancy agreement or rent back, you're just negotiating that as part of your negotiation up front as you're writing that offer. But yeah, I was surprised when I saw that report and I'm like, oh, I'm a quick closer. The fastest one's been a week and a half. So I was like, oh, okay, let's do it. And that kept me really competitive. It was same terms, I don't think we had any appraisal gaps or any of that. It was just, here's the purchase price. I can close in 2 weeks, and just made it happen. But yeah, you guys can be really quick. That's another thing. Get with your lenders and just see what strategies you can come up with and mastermind around those with you. Like, what else is going to make my offer more enticing on that side of things? And then just kind of talking through the offer. So since we're going to be the ones that are writing up the offer, making sure that our client understands. I think a lot of that is transparency. Us first, be a student. And make sure you're attending your contracts class. I know our managing broker or broker of record puts on class for us every week. Are you doing mock contracts with your productivity coach? What is it that you're doing just to make you that much more skilled? I've won offers by writing really clean contracts. And what that means is if there's a blank, I'm doing not applicable. I'm making sure that that blank is filled in with something so that it's acknowledged that I saw that section and I know that section doesn't apply to this transaction. So be really good about reviewing that contract. Be sure that your buyers understand all the terms that are going into it. It might be, hey, here's what these dates and deadlines are. Here's the HOA. Here's what this means. Show them big things like the price, the closing date, our inspection dates. Again, going back to contingencies, what's staying with the property, what's not, because maybe that chandelier that's really nice in the dining room, maybe they're taking that one. So just being clear in the communication that you're doing. And then just know what's essential in your area, what documentation, and on what forms or terms you should be referring to them. I know for us, a lot of it is within our contract, and then there's additional disclosures that are done. And a lot of people have like just additional addendums that they do in North Carolina, I know for sure. And so just really become that student and know the offer like the back of your hand. You'll be surprised when you can rattle off, oh, it's in section blah, 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 and is this box checked? And that's just continue to be that student in the market. And yeah, get with your coaches and ask them if you can send over mock contracts if you haven't just yet. And find a buddy to practice your presentations with as well. Go on to this next section here. There we go. So here in Colorado, this is just kind of a view of what our contract looks like. Just we're 23 pages is how much our contract is. And then what we take a look at is just property. Go to the next slide here. Our dates and deadlines have boxes that are just a little bit different, I think, than other states. If there's HOAs, here's where I was telling you guys about my NAs, time of day, if everything is due by like 7 p.m. When the earnest money is due, just title information. And then down below for us, we have a closing date and possession. And so those are just a few things that we take a look at here in Colorado. Like I said, every contract's a little bit differently. Maryland's different. I know I've seen a North Carolina one and I'm like, oh, that's different. So again, just making sure that you're that student on there. Where did that go? And then going over the price and terms. This is a big section that I spend time on with my clients. Understanding, hey, here's the price, here's our earnest money, here's the loan amount. Colorado has a section that talks about concessions. Are we asking for any concessions and how much are we asking for? How are they turning in that earnest money and who is that going to? Who's holding that? That's what our contract talks about. So make sure that you're being just clear in that with your buyers. I don't think I put in a section on there. We'll go through here. And then the other big thing is just making sure you're double checking all of those documents, all the disclosures. When I go through and I change, whoops, go back the other way. Especially here in the dates and deadlines, when I go through and we have templates, right? So we can go through, write a template, but when I'm going back and checking my dates, are they right? Are they on a Saturday? Are they on a holiday? Go back and really be just methodical in the way that you're writing those offers to make sure that you're hitting the dates right where they need to be. So making sure that you're really clear in that side of things. Are the names spelled correctly, even on the seller side? Is it an estate sale? Like, what are those nuances that you're maybe missing there? Get over here. And just follow instructions. Sometimes I think as agents, we get a little bit laxed and we don't read that confidential remarks on the MLS. So make sure you're reading those remarks. Is the seller asking for the rent back agreement? Do they need a quick close? Is there something that's saying that they weren't able to list on the actual MLS? What is it that's important to them? Or is there something with the communication with the agent? Are they out of town and they said, hey, contact my buddy? What does that look like? So make sure you're following those instructions. And the biggest thing, and just to save you guys time down the road, make files. Just be very organized, whether it's a Google Doc, whether it's folders on your desktop. There is your client name and then the address and everything that falls into that, and just labeled all correctly. Because you might be writing, I think the most I got up to during COVID was 17 offers for one buyer. And so how are you staying, that was a lot. I don't remember how many houses we saw yet. There was 17 offers is what I remember looking at my document writing system. So how are you staying organized? And a big part of that is just like when you're looking for things and you're going to add your attachments to send that email over to the listing agent. How does it look? Did you make sure you wrote the offer for this property, or are you giving them 123 Platt Street instead of 123 Main Street? So stay organized with your documents. And then making sure that you're putting just an email summary together for them. This is where I will encourage you guys to do templates. If you're using Google or if you're using just a Word document on your computer, label it. This is how I'm going to talk to all agents. Here's how I'm going to talk to all buyers or sellers when I'm sending templates, and here's what it means. And so make sure that you have a system. That way you're methodical in the way that you're doing things. And then biggest thing, call the listing agent. Even before you submit that offer, let's say you walk out of that house and they're like, this is the house that I want. This is the one. Get on the phone with the agent, ask them where they are at with that activity. on the house? Have they received any offers in hand? Are they getting threats that they're gonna get an offer? What does that look like? So making sure you're asking those questions right up front and say, hey, I have an offer coming your way a little bit later. And when you send it, ask them, do you want, like, I always ask when I'm calling that listing agent, do you want me to call you? Do you want me to text you when I send over the offer? And then do you want the lender to call you, or do you want to reach out to the lender? Because that tells them that you're valuing their time as well, because they're probably getting blown up with a lot of calls. So making sure that you're asking that and just taking note. I always carry around a notebook with me. I call one's my client notebook and my other one is my, I have a thought notebook. So this is my real estate notes of everything. And just notate and put it on there for you. And then making sure you're adding all your documents to command, just in a timely fashion as soon as you go under contract or you're doing the under consultation piece of it, and get to know that section of it. And again, any information that you're getting from that listing agent as you've made that call, just get back to your buyer. Hey, they don't have any offers in hand, or they have offers in hand. Here's what it looks like. And get them involved, because your client having that information is going to feel like, hey, Diana's working for me, right? Like, she's actually putting forth this effort. Because a lot of what our value comes up is people don't see, right, the things that we do behind the scenes. They see us opening doors, they see us going out and maybe some social media posts that we're out at a networking event, whatever that may be looking like, but they don't see the back end, right? They don't see us on the phone, they don't see us learning contracts, they don't see us in classes like here tonight. And so it's like, you show what you're doing, and it's just like, here's why I'm valuable, here's how I can come and support you and get you from point A to point B. So making sure you're letting them know on there. Added a blank on there. Here's what I was talking to you about, creating checklists and doing things for you, right? This is something I created early on. Again, this is coming from the banking background, that we had a checklist for everything. So it's like, did I call the listing agent? Did I complete everything that I needed to do before sending it for signatures? Am I sending the offer letter? And once I'm under contract, what am I doing? Am I submitting everything to where it needs to be? So this is just something to keep you guys accountable to. One, there's checklists that you can put in command once you have the opportunity under contract. And so that's something you can take a look at doing there. And those are just some disclosures that we have. And then the other thing I was going to show you guys is, this is where I learned that templates were important, is I have a listing agent. Here's what they're getting. Okay, thanks for answering my questions. Here's my offer. Here's the pre-approval letter. Here's my lender with X company. This is how you can contact them. And here's some just highlights of my offer. And by doing this, it saved me so much time, because I can go in, copy and paste, change the lender, copy the lender on the email as I'm sending over that offer, and just letting them know. So I would start that template guide for you guys as well. Any ahas from that section?
Yeah, well, I have some ahas and maybe even a question, because this
Say that
is,
again?
I said I have some ahas and possibly even a question. This is
Yeah.
this is the part that I didn't learn in my education, the making of the offer, or actually even the etiquette between real estate agent to real estate agent. So the aha was reaching out to them prior to the offer and finding out, where their seller stands in the process, where they're at with it. That's huge, because maybe they need 45 days and I just don't know that yet. So that's great to know. My question is, like, that offer email that you just had, say you have a client that's retired military, capable of a VA loan, but also capable of a cash or conventional loan. I know VAs are usually like pushed to the back burner. Would I put all of those potential offers in that email? Like, hey, look, your seller even has an option of their choice.
Yeah, no, yeah, this actually, and a big thing that there's a misconception with the VA loans, right? Like, a lot of people in the past were like, oh, a VA loan's not going to fly. They're not going to take this home. It's seen really kind of with an FHA, because if there's peeling paint with a VA loan, they just have to correct that piece of it. And I would get with just really good VA lenders. I've had a VA lender do a 2-week closing for me. And so talking about the success stories that they've had, and you can, even if you don't have the VA closings just yet, talk to that lender and ask him like, hey, how quickly can you close this? Or how's the process, or how is this streamlined? And I would say more and more today, more agents are on board with the VA loans. Yeah, so just have those,
Thank you.
those nuggets in your background. Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for the aha. Any other ahas that you all had, or was it helpful to see a checklist kind of?
I like the template because I feel like here lately I've been like pulled in several different directions with the meetings and the classes and having to do all of my social media and everything. So the template, being able to copy and paste, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, no, it's been really good. And you guys are drinking from a fire hose. The first couple of months, it just feels like everything is on and you're like, wait, where am I going? So yeah, just take it day by day, take it a section at a time. This is just you're gonna, as the more repetition that you have, the better you're gonna get at things and the more efficient. Like I think that template to write, it took me 3 years before I actually had a template. And that was one thing that I wish I would have done sooner. So that's what I say, if I can save you guys time now, here's what we're doing. Yeah, and take advantage of those tech classes. How can you get faster and better as you're doing this? Depending on what contract software you guys have, there's some that you can have templates in it as well. So get with your broker just to see what they offer as well. Yeah, thank you for that share.
Claudia, did
Okay.
you say that you were going to share these templates with us?
I can. I will find a way to. But yes, I will share the templates.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'll get it to Ileana and then we'll make it happen. That way you guys are getting it. They're
Awesome.
Google Docs right now, so yeah, it'll be an easy share. Just make a copy of it for you.
Okay, great.
All right, anything else on this section? Anyone? No? Okay. Move through here. So the next one is the receiving and responding. And before we go here, Vinny, you had the right point, right? Like as we're getting our license, there's no, here's how you do real estate. This is how you pass the test. Here's what the technicalities are. And sometimes it's not even the contract. It's just like, don't discriminate, follow the rules, and just transparency in all things. But it's not how you do real estate. You're learning as soon as you get that license, it's like, go. So that's a lot of it that you learn on the ground, boots on the ground with that piece of it. So give me a second. I got ahead of my notes here. So making sure that you're receiving. Give me just a second. I apologize, y'all. I got ahead of my notes. I got excited about checklists. Can you tell I'm a checklist type? So then just getting into the receiving and the reviewing of the offer. So again, making sure it's complete. You have a confirmation email or text, hey, got it. And that the offer is getting to the seller in a timely manner on that side of things, and also writing that summary. Oh, I apologize. This is for listings. This is if you're the listing agent in this section, having a checklist as well for you to go against. And I have another one when I share that, David, with Ilana, I'll make sure that you guys get the listing and the buyer. There's 2 tabs down at the bottom that you guys can go off of and customize it to you and to your state. But making sure, do I have a net sheet? Do I have like the talking points of each one? Here's the price, here's the closing date, here's the rent back. Are we getting charged rent? Are we not? What does that look like? Who the lender is, and then making sure that you've called and you've spoken to the lender to make sure, are they backed by a reputable company? Are they going through UWM? Are they going through Rocket Mortgage? Who is the one backing them? If they're a broker or if they're a local bank, they're probably just that local bank and it's staying in their portfolio. So have that conversation with the lender. And don't be afraid to ask questions like, hey, how is their job history? Well, like, are we set? Do you foresee there being any issues with us getting to the closing table? And that's a big question that you can ask. Or Is there something that we should be aware of from the seller side of things? So make sure you're doing that side of things. And then, yeah, create some sort of document to reference when you call that seller, going back to those checklists. Every single time I'm showing net sheet. Are you guys familiar with the net sheet by chance? That term? No. So
Oh, yeah, the
sometimes
term, yeah.
on the what?
The term, yeah. I haven't
Yeah.
really looked at one yet.
Yeah. So with some net sheets, it's just title company reps can give that to you. Breakthrough Broker is a free service that you guys can get on. I apologize, I take that back. Like Heritage Title, I don't know if you guys have a title company out there by that name. They have a net sheet piece that we can do. So just get together with your title companies. I don't know if you guys are title states or lawyer states potentially. It's like, I don't know. So yeah, make sure that you know where to pull that net sheet from. Because that's the other thing too, right? If they're giving you the same list price of if they're offering you $350, but are asking for 15,000 in concessions, or are they asking you for $375 and for 15,000 in concessions or no concessions? And being able to show that seller what that bottom number means to them will help with that conversation, because maybe there's a net number that they need to meet to be where they want to be on the beach or close to the grandkids, what that looks like. See if I had on there. The other thing to take notice, when you're making that call to the agent or even the lender, are there weird pauses? What's your gut feeling telling you? Do you feel like they're being truthful in that sense to you? Is there a tell that you're kind of picking up on? So kind of just be, food for thought on there. What can you pick up? So the gut says a lot of things, right? And then just keep in mind, keep the emotion out of it. A lot of it is also, so yes, go with the gut. Also keep the emotion piece out of it. What are the true facts, right? How well has this been approved? Where else are we going with this? Do the numbers add up? Do things look good? And are they clear? So just remember, at the end of the day, it is for the win-win situation. Let's see what other slide I have on here. Just a quick copy of a net sheet that I used with a client in the past to have that conversation. If you sell for X, after everything is said and done, here's what your total closing cost would be, and here's what you're netting at the end of the day. So just some information that you guys can look online to see what you can get. And then just remember to keep, again, create those offers in Command, just to keep you organized. What's cool with Command, once you guys are going under contract, there's a funnel piece that'll tell you potential commission income or success income down the road. Let me go here. So now that as a listing agent, now you've received the offer, how do we review and how do we respond to this next section? So just be ready to go deep into conversation with the client. Got a little ahead of myself there, but start creating, what does that look like, right? Here's the pros and cons of each offer. Here's the facts of what the numbers are telling us. Here are the dates and deadlines. And do they not meet what your motivation is, or where you need to be by the end of the summer, or whatever that date may be. So just be prepared to have a more in-depth conversation. If on the listing side, you find yourself that you are that, let's say you're at 10 offers, you're at 5 offers. How are you keeping yourself organized? And what is it that you're showing that client so that they can see your value going from there? So keep that in mind, just clear facts on that side of things. And then just know, do you need to set up a Zoom call to go over the offers with them? Do you need to meet them in person at the office or at their home? Have that conversation, and also knowing that up front from the way that they prefer to communicate when you have that initial consultation with them. All right. Go here into this next section. So let me just show you a little bit more. Yeah. So it goes back to buyer makes the offer. They're responding in the counter, they're accepting, or they're just full on rejecting it on there. And completely up to the state or the seller that you're working with, if you can respond as to why they chose another offer. That just is all in the technicalities of what your state says, or your exclusive right to sell with them is what we call it here in Colorado, is our listing agreements. Go on to this next section here. And the other thing that I wanted to point out, so let's say you do go back to, there's multiple buyers that are that you've received offers for. Can you call for a highest and best? Is that something that you can reach out through your MLS? I know we use Showing Time to set up our showings. And a Showing Time, can you do a blast to say highest and best due by X amount of date? By X date and by X time, and if so, the offers that you already have in hand, do you need to ask them to extend that acceptance deadline? So making sure, again, even from the buy side, from the listing side, being that communication coming forward, like what would you like to hear as a buyer's agent? And do that on the listing side as well. See here. Have a great weekend. Any questions about communication in this area with sellers?
No.
Yes, I have one. What would you do if your seller doesn't want to go to highest and best? How would you address that?
Yeah, if your seller doesn't want to go to highest and best, you can just say, here's what we have in hand, pros and cons, which one feels like it's the better fit for you. And you don't have to always do highest and best.
Well, I didn't because he didn't want to, but I really felt that he left money on the table. And I was really disappointed that we couldn't. But I just did not know what to say to help him understand the value of that.
Yeah. Another workaround could be like, hey, do you want to see what else is out there as well? Do you know what his motivation was for moving? Did he need a quick, like, let me just get out of the house?
This was a house that he flipped. So that's his business. And even though he may say at the end of the day, it's not all about the money, at the end of the day, it really is. So it was just a very bizarre, frustrating moment for us dealing with him to not see the value of what we were trying to do in getting everyone to come to the table with their highest and their best.
Yeah. No, yeah, sometimes it's just completely up to that seller, right? Like depending on that motivation or what they're wanting to do. Some people like, you know what, I'm good. I don't want to just risk it about this buyer wanting to walk away because I'm calling for highest and best. So it's just having that conversation and what they're really looking for to get out of the day. But yeah, it's amazing what you see out there.
I guess that falls under the keep your emotions out of it.
Say that again.
I guess that falls under keep your emotions out of it.
Yeah, just a little. It's harder because you want the best for them, and that's truly what you want. And when they don't see it, like you're like, all right, it's not my transaction, and I tried my best, and we listed where we needed to be, and it's a tougher part. That's I'll let you guys know you're gonna be therapists, you're gonna be counselors, you're gonna be maybe movers, maybe a little bit of cleaning in your life. So you're gonna wear a lot of different hats, and one of those two is just like, all right, I'm gonna walk you through this. I think Tony, was it Tony that had something else to say? No? Question? I don't know if she can hear me. All right. Yeah, and so just depending, what they wanna choose, they'll choose. Let me go through here. Yeah, so when they're reaching that decision, here's another thing, just to point out right here. So it says, what happens if our offer gets rejected? I would always say, even from the sell side or the buy side, no doesn't mean no forever, right? Like what happens if you can come to an agreement? Can you call that agent if you're ever rejected? Or hey, this isn't working for my seller. Here's what would work for my seller. I need closer to list price. What does that look like? And have that conversation. Don't be afraid to pick up that phone. I think with COVID, we did get behind the screen, and this is a lot of what we had to do, right? And so can you just pick up that phone call? Just give them a call and say, hey, what can I know you said no. What would entice the seller? if you're on the sell side or on the buy side, hey, you know what, we want an offer. However, here's our terms, and what clarity can you have in those conversations? So, and also on the opposite side, like if it's been listed for 120 days already on the MLS, can you go lower? And don't be afraid to go in a little bit lower and start having that conversation, because it's a starting point for your negotiations on that side of things. Going here. Yeah, so we sped through that pretty quickly there. Go here through the next one. I'm like, oh, what happened? Do you feel this way that you guys are more confident in your ability to be able to make offers going forward? Does it feel like you've been able to gain confidence from this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. What action are you guys gonna take today to move your business forward after this session?
I'm gonna practice writing offers.
Yeah. Anybody
gonna-
else?
I was gonna find somebody to go over the, like a listing presentation and a buyer's presentation to practice that with somebody.
Perfect, yeah. Anybody else? Anyone in the chat? Oh, you guys have been in the chat. I am so sorry. Let me go to the chat there. Some of you guys were just getting started. 30, 45 days for closings. I apologize. Let me see here. Yeah, I'm a big checklist person, so yeah, I'll make sure that you guys have those. Jashelle, I see you. Jashelle's from my office, not to call her out or anything. Yeah, so I like that. Working on templates is going to be a big step getting out of here as well. So I think that'll be really good on there. So I'll give you guys a quick, we'll do a 5-minute break, and then I'll get up that next section, that next slideshow going. So if you guys want to run to the bathroom, grab a snack, something, and then I will see you guys here shortly. Alrighty, I think we'll go ahead and get started now. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I dropped in the chat a couple of links. One of them was to the checklist. And if you guys look at that, there's a tab that says listings and the other says buyers. So make sure that you're just updating to your state. Make a copy of it and make it to your state and to your compliance documents. A lot of that piece too, what I do is when you're in command and you've created that opportunity, making sure that if there's a document that's required, that you're adding that to that checklist. That way, you know, this is something that I need to make sure that I keep track of on there. So just customize that, make it your own. Same thing with the templates that I shared on there. So there was a template that said just where like the listing piece of it, or here's my offer. You'll find a template below for buyer agency and seller agencies. There's just a couple of things that I do a little bit different. When I'm presenting an offer, when I write it for a client, there's something called Loom. And so I record a video and I explain the contract to my client before I submit it over. So it's maybe a 15-minute recording. Our contract, like I said, is 23 pages here in Colorado. So I'll go over the sections. I'm doing a screen recording. And that's a link that I make custom to them. That way they can click on it, watch that video. And what they're doing is that they're going to go ahead and hit play. I had a seller that he worked overnights. So he was sleeping during the day. I sent him that listing agreement and he loved that video because he was able to play it at 2 a.m. when it was his lunchtime. So you'll find tools throughout that'll help you. If you're texting over, that was another thing I did during the very busy period. I would do like a bit.ly link of the contract just because the software that I use is just like a web-based software. I would just shoot that over to the agent, just say, hey, here's my offer, here's a preview of it. So there's little things that you guys could be doing on there. And yeah, you're welcome, Deborah. So yeah. Let's see here. We'll just get started. So the next section will be negotiations. How do you negotiate an offer? What do you ask? What do you do? On here. So yeah, we'll cover the negotiating offers, and then I think you have one more section left tomorrow or Tuesday. Today's Thursday, right? Yeah. You'll have another section I think next week, and then you guys are done. Congratulations, you're close, man. And make sure that you keep taking this whenever you need it. Go back and look at those videos. There's a lot of key nuggets, and there's a lot of takeaways that you might not grasp the first time, but the next time you're gonna be like, got it. That's what I needed to hear this time. So it's okay to rewatch the videos as you guys are getting them, or put it on slow or fast, speed it up, whatever that looks like on there. So let's get into what is a negotiation, the 3 P's of negotiation, tips, recaps, and then we'll finish it off. Get you guys a little bit early for dinner tonight. On there, so let's go ahead and go from there. So negotiating is not something to be avoided or feared. It's an everyday part of life. Think about this. If you guys have kids, you're negotiating, right? The toothbrush for the bedtime, like the peas for the carrots, like something, right? There's something in negotiations. My nephew is really good at negotiating. He's like, well, if I give you this, you'll give me that. And I'm like, you can't have my phone, buddy. So just little things about that. Think about negotiations aren't big scary things. They happen on a day-to-day basis, right? You negotiate with yourself in your mind every day. If I do this, then I do this, or maybe not this side of things. So think about it that way. Get the fear out of the negotiations. And I always say the worst thing that can happen because you haven't asked yet, you already have the no because you haven't asked. So if they tell you no, you already knew you had the no because you hadn't made that ask just yet. All right, so let's get into the negotiation piece. I go too far on there. So we're gonna go over, negotiations on here. I tell you guys, I keep getting ahead of myself here. Is there any limiting beliefs that you guys have around negotiations?
I think one of the things is trying not to put myself in the seller's pocket. Like not make my offer for my client based on what I think the seller needs, but more on what my buyer needs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it goes back to just that going back to maybe that win-win situation, right? So if the seller needs this and if the buyer needs this, how do we get to that middle ground? How do we get to that middle of the road where both feel like they're walking away winning on that side of things? Anything else that you guys have limiting beliefs on as far as like negotiations?
Well, I can give another experience I've had. In New York, we're an attorney state. And so I had negotiated with the agent, the buyer agent. And then when everything came back from the attorney, it was as if none of that had been discussed. And I had
Oh,
to start over square one.
yeah,
And of course I had to tell the agent, this is what you agreed to. I don't understand what's coming from the attorney and what's coming from you.
yeah.
And it had
Amy,
already been discussed.
yeah,
So everything
Amy,
was fine because
Yeah.
I had it in writing.
okay, that's what I was just gonna ask you. Was it in writing beforehand?
Yes, and we also had a phone conversation. So he had left me an email. So I'm sorry, a voicemail. So I had two things. I had two things to as proof.
Oh, man, yeah, that's frustrating. I was gonna say, anytime that, even if you get off the phone with an agent, just go back and say, just to, per our conversation, we agreed to XYZ, it's coming over in a form of an amendment, or it's coming over the offer this, or whatever that may be. But yeah, that's a really good example, Amy.
Yeah, and it was, you're dealing with here a lot of wells in Orange County. So that was one of the issues. And with the basement dealing with radon and radon fan. So all of those things had already been discussed, and it came back that was required in the contract. And I just could not believe it. Thank goodness I had a paper trail.
Yeah, no, the paper trail, and that's what you guys are gonna get really good at. The other thing I would encourage you to do is anytime you're logging conversations with agents or even with the transaction for your client, go back and in your conversations that you're having, that you're logging as a call within your command, if you're not doing it on your phone, if you're doing it on your computer, keep track of it that way. Like I said, I think coming from the Baking Pass experience, we had a conversation log. So everyone that touched that file, there was a date, there was initials, here's what was said, here's what was done, here's what was discussed. Do that with your command, because you're gonna get to the point you have, even at 5 deals, right? Even at 3 deals, you're gonna forget which one said what with who. And your brain, if you leave things out of your brain, like get them out, write them down somewhere, you have more space to keep intaking things, because you don't want to burn yourself out that way. So yeah, really good with the paper trail, and way to go on there, Amy. Let's get going here. We'll get into what is negotiation. So this is a big part of our jobs. Like I said earlier, I think a lot of people think we're doing the selling sunset stuff, right? That we just go out to eat, we go open $1 million homes, drive Ferraris, no biggie, right? Day in the life of. So a big thing that we're doing is negotiating. So how can we negotiate? And going back to what Vinny said, right? Buyers, sellers, how can I make sure that they're both getting that win-win situation and getting what they both need on there? And then keep in mind that like that's why we're seeked, right? Like that's why we're sought after for being a buyer agent or a seller's agent, is they're looking for us to negotiate so that there's a third party in their just middle of the road to make sure they're getting what they need. Which ones, going back to the Y4C2Ts, and as you guys get to be more and more time into Keller Williams, you're gonna find that there's a dance to go with it. So I would encourage you to go YouTube the Y4C2Ts dance. Bring it to your market center. You'll enjoy that. So which would you say relates back to the negotiation process? There are a couple on here that you can see.
Communication.
Yep, communication, big thing.
Teamwork.
Teamwork, yep. What other one would you say is falls into a transaction, into negotiations?
Trust.
Yeah. Oh, that was right on. The trust. And then what was another one? You guys both said trust, I think, at the same time.
Integrity.
Integrity. Yeah. That's exactly it, because if I know something, I'm gonna make sure that the other party knows if there's a crack in the foundation that was covered up by some drywall. And I know that, I'm gonna tell the buyer's agent, I'm gonna make sure that I'm clear in my communication, and doing the right thing first. So yeah, that'll be your homework. Go check out YouTube. The Y4C2Ts, Mark King crushes it, and Julia Lachey, both of them. Yeah, so go check it out. All right, and so as we move forward here. And again, just remember the Y4C2Ts when you guys are negotiating, that's why they're both in my buyer and my seller presentations, keeping emotions to ourselves, and not being defensive when something comes up. I think we take a lot of pride in our work, and sometimes we want to be similar to Amy's situation, right? We want to advocate. We want to make sure that they're really feeling that they're getting what they need. So making sure that we're doing that for them, and then making sure that you give people grace. So sometimes there'll be moments, the other agent might be MIA for whatever reason. And just make sure that you give grace, because sometimes we don't know what happens on the day-to-day basis, if something happened in life recently or something's going on. So just remember that side of things, just that human element that we are good at. So let's go here to this next section. So here's going to be the path of the negotiation, and similar to that, what we had in that last slide. Oh, just kidding, guys. There we go. Offers accepted, and we close, right? Or there's option 2 that we start going with the rejections, with the counters. There's more negotiation here in the mix, and you're either accepted or rejected. And then you get to the closing table. So there's a lot of back and forth that happens, and that's a lot of what we do on there. And just remember, in order for you to get to this process where you're negotiating, you got to be lead generating. You got to be talking to the people that you know. Is there a niche that you can get into? I didn't know how to swim until 2019. And so I started taking swim lessons just because my mom was deathly afraid of water growing up, right? I got into swim lessons as an adult. I've closed a deal earlier this year, or last year actually, because of it. I have a buyer coming from it here this spring, and then I referred someone to refinance their home. They had like a 9% interest rate. And then I have another pre-approved buyer because of getting into that swimming niche, right? So wherever you're at, whatever you're enjoying, lead gen around there. Are you wearing a t-shirt that has KW, or are you wearing a shirt that says, hey, ask me about home values, or anything that you can, if you guys do sports, ask me how I can get you home, and then maybe it's a home run, something kind of theme. So just do it around the lead generation of what you enjoy. Get with your coach and make sure that you're meeting those numbers and keeping track of that daily activity. And at the end of this, I'll show you guys what my tracking looked like when I first started, and then what my activity led to. So it's pretty cool to see that overlap, and the ebbs and flows and why they happened, because I wasn't lead generating. So just get out of your head with it. You're helping people. You're not doing anything else. You're being there for them, and you're being their point of contact. So something I want to express early on. And so yeah, get to lead generation. Sorry, that was a soapbox for a little second. And then making sure, yeah, you're getting that appointment, you're getting that buyer agreement or that seller agreement signed. You guys are coming to the conclusion that you can work together with that other client on there. And you're going to continue to establish your negotiation skills, with more repetition, and then with closings as they continue to happen. And then I'm a big person of just visualize it and it's yours. Watch your verbiage around yourself, and it's like, I'm trying, no, you're doing, and you are getting. So watch that piece of it as well. And then that's going to create confidence in your conversations as well. If you can, attend the role play and script practice that your market centers offer. If they're not offering it just yet, grab an agent in the office that you can buddy up with and have those conversations, where I can call Christine, hey, Christine, Claudia, and start having a role play conversation. So I encourage you all to do that. And then who do you negotiate with? So this is where we stand as agents, right? We're the middle. We're that connector piece of it. We're negotiating with the buyer. We're negotiating with the seller's agent, and then back to the seller. So we're that middleman, middlewoman. And how are we negotiating? What are we negotiating? So this is the full steps of who we talk to at each and every point. See on here, what do you think gets negotiated? We talked a little bit about.
Repair,
Say that again, Sheila?
repairs,
Repairs, yep. In Colorado, that goes through our inspection dates and deadlines.
Price
Price. Mm-hmm.
or
What
closing
else might
date,
get
maybe?
negotiated?
I don't know.
What was that?
Closing date or
Your closing date? The chandelier, the mini fridge. It depends, right? Like there's some states I think that everything stays that's in the house will stay, and other states that don't. Like I said, Colorado is an inclusion-exclusion state. So yeah. It could be title company, it could be the amount of earnest money. That type of thing as well.
Literally any aspect of the deal can be negotiated.
Yep. Everything's negotiable. That's exactly it. So that's where we come into play, right? What are we negotiating? How are we coming to that win-win situation on those side of things? And then here's some common points that we talked about. So price and terms, price, typically the primary factor. What is it going to cost that buyer to get into that home? And then terms, financial, time-based, both. Anything and everything, as Jeremy said. There's a lot of things that we can negotiate. It's non-negotiable. Any ahas from this section? Pretty straightforward on here. I think we did some overlap too with the previous section. All right, so then the 3 P's of negotiations. So they are to prepare, to present, and to position are what these sections are. So preparation is a key to confidence and just ensuring a smooth transaction. A lot of what we talked about in that last chapter was, are you organized? And by being organized, what are your steps that are going through? So preparing, just building that confidence. What are you presenting? So how are you moving through in the negotiation process as you're presenting those offers? And then how do you position? So how do you move both parties going forward on that side of things? And then we're just kind of going to go into depth a little bit into each of the sections and what they mean to you. Here. So as you prepare, so know your goal. I would encourage you take a notebook, or if you have a list of questions, if you're not pre-qualifying, or take those questions with you to that listing appointment or to that buyer consultation. Know what their goal is, get to know the client, think ahead. Is there something outside of the box? Is there someone that you can bounce ideas off of if the situation's a little bit more unique than a straightforward buy, sell? Set clear expectations. That's a big thing. Here's when I'm going to communicate with you. Here's when photos are happening. Here's what's going to happen next. And just make sure that you're staying informed as well. Be a student of the market. I'll encourage you to take 30 minutes a week, an hour a week, and just sit and really get to know your MLS, get stats if it's from your title company or from whoever you get them from in your local state. And then also, what neighborhood is your niche? Is there something that you know specifically that's coming here? Are you attending city hall meetings, planning and zoning? What is it that you're becoming that expert and being informed in? And obey the laws, keep your license. You worked hard for it, so let's keep your license. And make sure you know the documents inside and out. Like I said, contracts class that your broker offers, if whoever offers those classes, be present and write those mock contracts. That way you'd be very dangerous with those contracts, because you're like, oh, according to section blah, blah, blah. If we terminate or if we don't come to an inspection resolution, the contract terminates. I can tell you that for the state of Colorado, right? So just really get to know them on that side of things. Be a student, but then also be a lead generator. Don't do too much of the student. Put in the work. See on this next section that I had. And then just make sure you're asking those purposeful questions. Are you providing the points that you'll need to negotiate on? Are they providing insight on what your where you and your client can leverage, just again, setting those expectations, the goal, and how do we get to be that win-win side of things. Here are some examples of some open-ended questions for you guys on here. So open-ended questions would be more of like, what should I know? Or if you're asking the closed-ended question is like, what specific date? The asking, what additional information should I know, is you're finding their motivation, right? Why do they need to move? They have a job relocation, they have orders, especially with the VA community, of needing to be in Aurora, Colorado by X date. Or wherever that may be, or they're in Germany. What does that look like? So what additional information should I know? How do you feel about that? And the reason to ask the open-ended questions is because you're going to be able to get back to their motivation. Like I said, sometimes a situation, every closing, every contract is going to be so different. Some are going to be super smooth, other ones are really rocky, and everyone has a different situation. So how do you get that seller back to know, like with my listing that I was telling you guys earlier, we're overpriced. I've said that since day one. And then my conversations with them is like, how do I get you closer this summer to be here with your grandson? And so coming back to that time frame that they wanted to be here and as to why, it'll so start asking those open-ended conversations or open-ended questions. Is there other questions that you guys can think of that you could ask? See if I wrote down one. Yeah, how does it make you feel? Or how do you know you won, right? Like, how do you know that that's got you where you needed to be? There's a book that I'm going to recommend to you. I put it in the chat right now. It's by Phil M. Jones. It's called Exactly What to Say. And there's also an Exactly What to Say for real estate agents. It's those conversations that you're having, continuing that script in the role play. How does that make you feel? Or how will you know? Just different questions to ask and to word it, and tell me more. That's just a question that leaves it open for the person to be just open with you as to what they're really thinking or where they want to be. So check out that book. If you can get the actual physical book, that way there's a workbook exercise that you guys can do with it. Just some recommendations on there. Has anyone heard of Phil Jones? No? Yeah.
Actually, I just purchased that book,
Okay.
and
You're
our
gonna enjoy
market
it.
market center hands those out to everyone. And I didn't get one because they were out, so I just went ahead and ordered one. They're very inexpensive on Amazon, maybe $6-8, something cheap.
Yeah, they're really inexpensive. So make sure you get a copy of that one. A really good book. I have it on Audible. And so it just has a different bullet points of each chapter. And how do you deal with a certain situation? So good for communication all around. Sheila has that book is what I'm getting. That's awesome. All right, so then we will move on to this next section here. So the what and why questions, and you're going to find this in that Exactly What to Say book. The what would happen if, so it helps to anticipate the next section of negotiation. And why is this important to you, right? We want to know the information. We want to gain the insight as to why we're here. And what's important about this transaction. And this can help you every day with conversations, just to dig deeper and build a little bit more. And then just know your client's needs. It'll give you just that knowledge and that power to negotiate, both if they're on the sell side or on the buy side. You guys will have that in your back pocket as well. Get you to the next section here. So just best practices when you're presenting offers. Again, we said go call the other agent, paying attention to the nonverbal cues, pauses, the voice, is something going on. And then just make sure that once you're presenting that offer to your seller, keep the facts like we said earlier, present what's at hand, and then just listen carefully. A lot of us, just by listening, we're able to pick up a lot more of what that person's feeling. I was having a conversation earlier with my OP that you can tell when someone's present and when they're not, even just with the phone call. So it's interesting to see that piece of it, how you start picking up on just little things throughout. And just make sure to focus on that customer's need, and give your offer the best chance by putting your best foot forward. Like I said, having that template, having someone else review your contract if that's part of what your market center does, before you submit that offer, and just having very clean offers is going to get you just ahead. There's a lot that there's a couple of people, of several agents that have told me that the reason that they chose our offer was because it was such a clean contract. So that's just something to keep in mind. Clean offer and great communication. That's over communicate, and it's okay. I had an agent ask me, they're like, well, what if I'm calling them too much? You're not calling them enough. Like, it's okay to over communicate because they see how your professionalism is standing out there. And that's going to give your offer the best chance. And then positioning. So again, that positioning piece was moving them from point A to point B. So just acknowledge and affirm that common ground, ask the what and how questions, know what that process is like to get them signed and moving from point A to point B. And knowing when to walk away. There's times there might be a buyer, there might be a seller that you're like, you know what, this isn't a good fit. And it's okay to say no. And in the beginning, it's hard to say no because we're hungry, right? We want to take that client. But sometimes it's not that great fit. But can you find someone in your market center, another agent perhaps that you can refer it to, get a referral fee off of it and just do something that way? And it's just, sometimes it's they're not seeing it and they need to hear it from someone else in order to get things moving. So it's not, I want this to, like, don't let it think, don't think that it's a reflection of you. There's something that they're fighting internally, right? That they're just clashing with you for whatever reason, and it's okay to walk away. So think about it that way. And then just make sure, going back to the Y4C2Ts, right? The integrity piece, doing what you know is right, and then walking away when you have to. So that's that piece. Any ahas from this section? Pretty straightforward. Felt like we walked it in the last section, right? Yeah, they overlap a little. Let's see what else I have on here. We'll close up just with negotiation tips. So let's go on here again. Just being professional, keeping your goal, their goal in mind, paying attention to the tones, anyone involved in the transaction. Like I said, if you're on the buy side, or even on both the buyer, the sell side, talk to that lender. What's your, what are they telling you? And does this make sense? What are those key takeaways? And just refer to your client's motivation when speaking to them. Don't give too much information, just more of that listen more than talk. And then just making sure that their motivation is close to heart to you as to why you're helping them throughout this transaction. And again, don't be attached to the outcome. I've had deals fall through the day before closing for X reason. Well, then the right house came along, right? Like the right buyer came along for whatever. I have listing that I just had, if we closed like a month ago or earlier in March. I've had it on the market since October, and I'm like, you need to move. Come on, sell townhome. And it took 3 shots. And so I was like, 3rd time's the charm, right? So we're able to get that closed, and it's just like, it's gone. And it's okay, because the right house, I always say things always work out for the person that they're meant to be on there. So don't be attached to that outcome. Let's see what else I have on there. Do you feel like your thinking has changed with this course, these last couple of chapters? Mindset a little bit? Yeah, okay. Anything else that you guys can see that you're going to be using going forward?
Besides the checklist, I'm going to be more open to reaching out to other agents and even lenders. I have one lender that I reach out to, sometimes maybe too much, but you know, if my client doesn't use them, I don't know the other lenders. So I need to learn to just pick up the phone, dial that number and say hi.
Yeah. It's, someone told me early on, I think it was one of my managing brokers, said, you're a people connector in this industry. And sometimes I have 3 preferred lenders that I go with between, that I always give out their contact information, but I know that I have another Claudia, right? So Claudia, the lender, is going to connect really well with this one. Andrew's going to connect really well with this one. So I'll give them the information, but having those in my back pocket helps with the experience that the clients are getting on that side of things. So yeah, it's, I don't think there's such thing as having too many lenders, but caution you with if they have a lot of time on their hands, I would question that. My red flag, I guess. Let's see here. I'll stop that share. Any other takeaways that you guys have? Anything, any questions that like are lingering that you guys want to know or feel like you haven't got quite the answer to as far as transactions go or negotiations? You guys feel pretty good? How many of you are lead generating? Are you guys doing that 10-5-1? Okay. Christine is. Vinny, he's a kinda. Dan said yes. David, yeah. Lead generating. Yeah. The other thing, if it feels like that 10-5-1 is too much, if you guys are doing social media, I would do you could do 5 likes, 5 comments, 5 DMs. That could be another thing if you want to approach it that way. And don't be afraid to pick up the phone and talk to your friends, your past coworkers. I've gotten a lot of deals from there from just reconnecting. I was off of social media, came back on social media, and then I started picking up my phone. And that was a big thing for me because I was like, I don't know exactly where that presentation is at that I was telling you guys about, but there, you can tell when I wasn't making my calls. So flow chart or my chart had all these calls that I was making, and then there was no business, right? But then the next, everything that you're doing now affects you in 90 days. And then 3 months later, my sales were here, my calls were down. So it's like, as long as you're keeping consistent with your calls, you can keep your consistency with your business. So lead gen, even if it's 5 a day, if you are just starting, start somewhere. And do, if you guys have heard Ed Milet, the power of 1 more. If your goal is 5 today, do 6 tomorrow. And just work up to that piece of it. And you're going to find yourself that you're having more and more real estate conversations that you think. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else? You guys, I didn't scare you away from calling people? No? Alrighty. No. Well, thank you guys for your time. I'll let you guys go a little early. You guys enjoy. Good luck. Have a great Easter. David wrote it on there. Yeah, that happened very quickly. We're already in April. So thank you guys.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation.
Yes,
Thank you,
very,
Amy. I appreciate
very
that.
good. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good one.
Too.